Hello all, and welcome to Building a Home Library, Part 4. If you hadn't clued in by the intro, that didn't make sense. If you weren't clued in by the intro, today we are going to be taking a look at the works of Dr. Hunter S. Thompson. Now, for those of you who have no idea who he is, this will be an introduction. For those of you who have sort of an idea as to who he is, this will be a guide. And for those of you who know everything about him, well, this will be a chance for you to write really crappy comments in my comments box. I'm going to start with the Rum Diary. It was the first one that he wrote, but it was published much later. It is actually a novel, so for those of you familiar with his journalistic and sort of non-fiction stuff, it's a bit of a change, but it's not bad, and I actually quite enjoyed it. The first one that he did have published was Hell's Angels, a strange and terrible saga. And it's obviously about the Hell's Angels, and he spent a little over a year riding around with them in Oakland and San Francisco. Almost got himself killed by the time it was finished. But it's an interesting book, and it was his first sort of here I am, I'm on the map work. Moving right along. Those of you out in internet land who have never heard of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, this is it. It's a story, a true story. It's exaggerated in some places, one may assume. But the idea behind gonzo journalism, which was the style of new journalism that Thompson created, was, I think it was Faulkner who said you can tell a truer story with fiction than you can with fact. And that is one of the premises behind gonzo journalism, that sometimes the hyperbole gets the message across much better. We now come to possibly one of the greatest pieces of political journalism ever written, Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail 72. It's obviously about the 72 presidential election and the primaries running up to it. Deals very heavily with the Democrats, who he was sort of embedded with, to use a modern term. It's a great read. You may, if you don't know anything about the election, want to brush up on who the players were. But even if you have no idea, it's still a great introduction, and I think that for the complete beginner on American politics, it works quite well. And that sort of takes us out of the books proper, if you want to call them that. Right now, I would like to move into 4 books that are sort of collectively known as the Gonzo Papers. The first one is actually a first edition copy. It's not in the greatest of shape, but it's still a first edition. Oh, I love it. Thank you, Miles. Called The Great Shark Hunt. That's number 1. Number 2 is A Generation of Swine. Number 3 in the Gonzo Papers is probably my personal favorite of all his stuff. Songs of the Doomed. More Notes on the Death of the American Dream. And the 4th collection of the Gonzo Papers is Better Than Sex, Confessions of a Political Junkie. So those are the Gonzo Papers. And they are a collection of his articles, snippets from books, thoughts, letters, fun stuff. It's a really great way to get into his head, which is not always a place that you want to be. This one here, Kingdom of Fear, with a great picture of a nude shooting Thompson on the back, was, if it was not the last book he wrote, it was definitely one of. I'm pretty sure it was the last one, the book proper. And it's, well, it's good. It's not his best, but what can you do? But I really quite enjoyed reading it, but then again, I'm obviously a fan, so more insight to an interesting man. That's Kingdom of Fear. It's relatively recent. I quite like it. This one is called Hey Rube. This is modern history from the ESPN.com sports desk. He was a sports fanatic. This is a collection of his sort of journalistic ramblings when he was working for ESPN. What the hell? ESPN. Even though it was a sports, like sports site and sports writing, still more very adept political rantings. Sooner or later in the career of every, or sometimes posthumously, but in the career of every successful writer, they release his or her correspondence, their letters. There are two for Thompson. Number one is The Proud Highway, Saga of a Desperate Southern Gentleman, 1955 to 1967. That's my copy there. Number two is Fear and Loathing in America, The Brutal Odyssey of an Outlaw Journalist, and that's 68 to 76. It's not necessarily required reading, but as I said, it gives you a really good look, once again, inside the brain of the person. Back there somewhere I have, for instance, the letters of Jack Kerouac, the journals of Ginsberg, and it's just sort of the unofficial stuff. I mean, even the Kurt Cobain journals, despite the crappiness surrounding them, were an interesting read. Yeah, moving on. Now, there are at least two people in Thompson's world, Lint. Two people in Thompson's world that you cannot mention him without thinking of the other. Number one would be Richard Milhouse Nixon, but nuts to him. The other one would be a British artist by the name of Ralph Steadman. They had a very long working relationship, very tenuous working relationship. This here is my coffee table version of The Curse of Lono, and it's about a trip they took to Hawaii together. And you can sort of see the type of artwork that Steadman was famous for. So look into Ralph Steadman, very cool stuff. Another interesting figure from Thompson's life was a gentleman by the name of Oscar Zeta Acosta. And he was the lawyer that accompanied him on the infamous trip to Las Vegas. In The Great Shark Hunt here, there is the Banshee Screams for Buffalo Meat. It's an interesting essay, sort of a requiem for Acosta, who just sort of disappeared and nobody really knew whatever happened to him. He was an activist for civil rights, known as the Brown Buffalo, and he was a practicing attorney. Interesting guy. So if you get a chance, look into some of his life. It is interesting, to say the least. For those of you who didn't know, Hunter Thompson died February 20th, 2005, of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. It was something that he always said he'd do, and he did. A little while later, a memorial service was held for him. Mostly, the tab was picked up by Johnny Depp, because he wanted to have his ashes shot into the air and boom, and that's exactly what they did. They built a big cannon and had the Gonzo fist up at the top. The Gonzo fist, by the way, is a two-thumbed fist with a peyote button right in the middle. Anyway, that's how he went out. There's a lot of stuff on the web about Thompson, if you're curious taking a look. Most of it's crap, but if you go to www.gonzo.org, you'll find The Great Thompson Hunt, which is a great site. And also, you can go to the Alfarm blog, which is www.alfarmblog.com, which is run by his widow Anita, and it's some neat stuff to look into. So that is Building a Home Library Part 4. That is Hunter Thompson, one of my favorites. And if you have a favorite, let me know. Or, as I said, do a response video to this or whatever. Just, if you want to get the name out there, get it out there however you can. Talk to you later.